So I live in a pretty quiet suburban neighborhood where most people mind their business and just want peace. You know the type: family barbecues, lawnmower hums on Saturday mornings, kids on scooters after school. But of course, no slice of suburban paradise is ever complete without that one person who acts like the self-appointed ruler of the block. Now, Karen isn't actually named Karen, but let's just say if the shoe fits, lace it up. She's the president of our Homeowners Association, HOA, a title she clings to like it gives her government-level authority. If you've ever dealt with an HOA president who lets the power go to their head, you already know the vibe. Anyway, I bought my house about 2 years ago. It's a corner lot, has a big front yard, and came with a sweet bonus: a detached garage that the previous owner turned into a workshop. Since I'm into woodworking, it was perfect. I spent the first few months fixing it up, adding ventilation, new lighting, a heavy-duty bench, and turning it into my little haven. Here's where things started to go south. Karen walked over the day I moved in. She had that passive-aggressive smile and a clipboard in hand. She welcomed me to the neighborhood in the fakest tone possible, then immediately started rattling off HOA regulations like I had just enlisted in the military. "You'll need to submit a landscaping plan to the HOA board," she said, eyeing my slightly overgrown hedges. I just smiled and nodded. "Sure, I'll take care of it." Little did I know, that was the beginning of a very long and exhausting battle. The first real incident happened about 6 months in. I decided to build a privacy fence along one side of my property, completely within the HOA rules, mind you. I even submitted the paperwork, got it approved, waited for the green light, and hired a contractor. The day they started digging, Karen marched over like she owned the place, arms folded, lips pursed. "This wasn't approved," she snapped. "Actually," I said, flipping through the folder I brought out just in case, "it was. Here's the signed approval." She looked stunned for a second, then pivoted to, "Well, I don't like how it's going to block the view for drivers. It's a hazard. Lady, it's a 6-foot fence set back from the road on my property. The contractor even checked with city zoning before we broke ground." Karen stormed off that day, but that wasn't the end. Oh no, it was just the start of her mission to reclaim the neighborhood from the tyranny of me, enjoying my own home. One weekend, I was working on a custom dining table in the garage workshop. Doors open, music playing low, not bothering anyone. My tools are loud, sure, but it was the middle of the afternoon on a Saturday. Cue Karen. She struts over in her signature tracksuit and starts waving her phone in the air. "You can't run a business out of your home," she yelled. I turned off my sander and said, "I'm not. This is a hobby." "Well, it's noisy and disruptive. I've logged a complaint." "Logged a complaint with who? Herself?" I ignored her. That just made it worse. A few days later, I got a letter from the HOA citing excessive noise and unauthorized commercial activity. I wrote a long, detailed rebuttal, included photos, timestamps, and even a letter from my next-door neighbor who said he didn't hear a thing. I won that round too, but she was just getting warmed up. After losing the noise complaint battle, Karen went quiet for a few weeks. I started to think maybe she'd finally backed off. Maybe, just maybe, she realized I wasn't breaking any rules and was just a guy trying to enjoy his home. I was wrong. So very wrong. One morning, I walked outside to grab the paper and noticed a bright orange sticker slapped across my garage door. "Notice of violation!" It screamed in bold, all-caps letters. I rubbed my eyes, thinking maybe I was seeing things. Nope. Karen had left me a fake citation from the HOA. It looked official, but when I examined it, I noticed typos, no signature, and it was clearly something she printed off her home computer. Now I was annoyed. I snapped a photo and emailed it directly to the HOA board, not just her. Within the hour, I got a response from one of the board members apologizing and confirming that the citation was not from them and had no legal standing. Turns out Karen had been warned before about overstepping her role. Guess she didn't learn her lesson. That evening, I came home to find Karen pacing the sidewalk in front of my house, phone in hand, peering into my garage again. I walked over and calmly asked what she was doing. "I'm making sure you're not conducting any illegal activity," she said without blinking. "Lady," I said, "I'm sanding a piece of maple, not building a bomb." That didn't go over well. Fast forward a few more weeks. I had friends over for a backyard barbecue. Nothing wild, just burgers, beers, some music, and a lot of laughter. Karen, of course, couldn't let it slide. About halfway through the afternoon, she came storming across the lawn like she was raiding a frat house. "This is a clear violation of HOA policy," she declared, wagging her finger. "No parties without prior board approval." I tried to explain calmly that it wasn't a party. It was a few friends, some food, and we weren't disturbing anyone. Even the Johnsons, who lived right next to me, were there enjoying a drink. Karen wasn't having it. She said she was calling the police. We all laughed. Honestly, we thought she was bluffing. Nope. 15 minutes later, 2 squad cars rolled up. Now, I've always been respectful toward law enforcement, so I walked up to them and explained what was going on. The officers were cool. They looked around, saw nothing illegal happening, and even apologized for the inconvenience. Karen, on the other hand, was furious. She wanted someone in handcuffs. When the cops didn't give her the reaction she wanted, she started yelling about me harboring dangerous tools in my garage. One of the officers turned to her and said, "Ma'am, unless he's constructing a rocket launcher back there, we don't see an issue." Karen stormed off, red-faced, muttering something about how this whole block is going downhill. At that point, it became clear to everyone that this wasn't about rules or noise or zoning. Karen just didn't like that she couldn't control me. She hated that I wasn't scared of her clipboard or her printed-out fake notices. She couldn't stand that I knew my rights, followed the rules, and refused to bow to her imaginary throne. So she went nuclear. A few days after the barbecue incident, I woke up to flashing lights outside. I peeked through the blinds and saw fire trucks. Confused and slightly panicked, I ran outside in my pajamas. Karen was standing at the edge of her driveway, arms folded, smirking. She had called 911, claiming there was a chemical fire in my garage. I stood there, mouth open, as firefighters walked up and asked if they could inspect the area. I agreed, obviously, and walked them through. They saw nothing but some woodworking gear, a few cans of standard wood stain and finish, nothing dangerous, and certainly nothing on fire. The lead firefighter was visibly annoyed. "Sorry, sir," he said. "We've had false calls in this neighborhood before. You're fine." I looked over at Karen, who was pretending to be shocked that there was no fire. "Better safe than sorry," she said. What she really meant was, "Better try to ruin your day than mind my own business." But that call, that was the one that crossed the line. So yeah, that 911 call about a fake fire, That was the last straw. I mean, sure, Karen had been a pain up until then, but calling emergency services over complete nonsense? That crossed a serious line. Later that day, I filed a formal complaint with the HOA board and attached a written statement about the false 911 call. I also sent an email to the local police department letting them know this woman had now made multiple false reports. I wasn't playing around anymore. This wasn't just annoying, it was harassment, and possibly illegal. What really blew my mind, though, was the reaction from my neighbors. I guess they'd all had run-ins with Karen too, but none of them wanted to deal with the drama. After the fire department fiasco, people started coming forward. One guy down the street told me Karen reported him for excessive Halloween decorations. Another neighbor, an older woman, said Karen tried to fine her for having a wind chime that was too loud. Seriously, turns out I wasn't the first person Karen had gone after. I was just the first person who fought back. Armed with support from a few neighbors, we requested a special HOA meeting. According to the bylaws, if a certain number of homeowners signed a petition, the board had to allow it. We got more than enough signatures in just a couple of days. At that meeting, I came prepared. I printed out every letter she'd sent me, photos of her creeping around my property, the fake HOA violation notice, and a transcript of the 911 call I requested from the local dispatcher. The moment I played that audio for the room, jaws dropped. There was Karen on the recording, claiming there was smoke coming out of my garage and that she feared an explosion. One of the board members asked, "And where exactly was this smoke, Karen?" Because the fire department didn't find any. She didn't have an answer. Another neighbor stood up and said, "This is exactly why I don't come to HOA meetings. Karen turns every minor issue into a federal case." The board went quiet for a few seconds, then one of them finally spoke. "We will be voting privately on disciplinary action." The next day, I got the email. Karen was officially removed as HOA president. She could remain a resident, of course, but she no longer had any decision-making power. You'd think that'd be the end, right? Wrong. She doubled down. No longer able to use the HOA as a weapon, she resorted to petty sabotage. I'd wake up to my trash cans tipped over, find strange footprints in the mulch I just laid down. And once, someone dumped birdseed all over my front porch, which of course led to a swarm of pigeons the next morning. It was childish, it was obvious, and it was her. I installed security cameras, not just the ones by the door, full perimeter coverage. I got footage of her lurking near my fence late at night, tossing what looked like rice into my bushes, and even peering into my garage window with a flashlight. That was the final nail. I filed for a restraining order. Now, I'm not a guy who likes to escalate, but when someone can't respect property lines, privacy, or personal boundaries, and when their behavior becomes threatening, you do what you have to do. I brought the footage to court. The judge watched the video in silence, then turned to Karen and said, "Ma'am, I've seen enough. This is stalking behavior." He granted the restraining order for a full year. Karen was stunned. I think that was the first time someone had ever actually held her accountable. After the restraining order was granted, you'd think Karen would finally take the hint. But nope. She still tried to find ways to push my buttons, just without crossing the legal line. She'd stand at the edge of her yard, just barely within her property, glaring at me like she was rehearsing a courtroom monologue. If I was mowing the lawn, she'd watch like a hawk. If I was unloading groceries, she'd stand there with her arms crossed, silently judging. I started calling it Karen Patrol, but honestly, at this point, it was more sad than threatening. She'd lost her HOA position, had been legally ordered to stay away from my home, and most of the neighbors had distanced themselves from her. She was isolated. And not because anyone ganged up on her, but because of her own behavior. What surprised me the most, though, was how the neighborhood came together after all of this. People who barely waved before started chatting with me. Someone brought over cookies just to say thanks for standing up to the madness. I even got invited to the HOA's next board meeting, this time as a guest speaker to help review new guidelines for preventing board overreach. We ended up putting in a rule that no one person could make or enforce decisions without a majority vote. That was something the neighborhood needed a long time ago, but no one had ever pushed for it. Karen, of course, didn't attend that meeting. About 2 months after the restraining order was granted, I noticed a for sale sign go up in her yard. No announcement, no open house, just a sign, quietly staked into the lawn like a white flag of surrender. And then, just like that, she was gone. The day the moving truck pulled in, I stayed inside. Not out of fear or spite, I just didn't want to give her any more of my time. But I did peek through the blinds once, and for a brief second, I felt a little bad. She looked tired, worn out, like all that bitterness finally caught up to her. But you know what? Actions have consequences. You can't harass people and expect to be welcomed. You can't create chaos in a community and not expect people to push back eventually. Since then, things have been peaceful. I still work in my garage. I still invite friends over for barbecues. The fence is still standing. The workshop is still humming. And not once has anyone complained. Because real neighbors, they care about living in harmony, not playing dictator. I learned something important through all this. Sometimes the only way to deal with a bully in a tracksuit with a clipboard is to stand your ground, document everything, and let the truth speak louder than the drama. And if you're ever unlucky enough to have a Karen try to rule your block, trust me, you're not alone. There's always a way to push back, legally, calmly, and effectively. About 6 months after Karen left, life really settled into a rhythm. The neighborhood finally felt like the quiet, welcoming place it was always meant to be. We had a block party in the spring, our first in years, and it actually felt like a community again. No one checking lawn heights, no one measuring the width of mailboxes. Just music, food, and neighbors finally acting like neighbors. The new HOA board was way more balanced. They even asked me to help draft a homeowner's welcome packet to ensure no future HOA members thought they were running a kingdom. And the best part? My workshop was busier than ever. I'd even started teaching a few kids in the neighborhood some basic woodworking. One of the dads brought his teenage son by every Saturday to learn how to build a birdhouse. That garage, once the battlefield for Karen's complaints, had turned into a creative space that brought people together. But then, something unexpected happened. One morning, I saw a moving truck across the street. A young couple, probably in their late 20s, was unloading furniture. Naturally, I went over to say hello and welcome them. They seemed super nice, chill, normal. Then I saw her, Karen. Not Karen, but her sister. No kidding. The resemblance was eerie. Same hairstyle, same entitled smirk, same clipboard-toting energy. When I introduced myself, she smiled and said, "Oh, I've heard all about this place. My sister used to live here." I froze for a second. Really? Oh yes, she said. She told me all about the HOA issues and how hard it was dealing with difficult neighbors. I could feel the air shift. Was this round two? But here's the thing. I wasn't the same guy I was 2 years ago. I wasn't going to be intimidated, manipulated, or walked over. I just smiled. Well, I said, I hope you're not planning on running the block like a military base. This neighborhood's changed a lot, for the better. She just gave me a tight-lipped smile and said, Don't worry. I'm just here to enjoy my house. We'll see about that. For now, she's been quiet. No complaints. No weird notes in the mailbox. No passive-aggressive lawn comments. Maybe she really is just here to enjoy her house. Or maybe she's waiting for the right moment to pull out the clipboard. But this time I've got cameras, a legal trail, and an entire neighborhood that's done taking orders. So if she tries anything... Weeks passed, and the Karen 2.0 across the street actually kept to herself. No weird looks, no fake citations, no HOA patrol energy. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, but it never did. Maybe seeing what her sister went through taught her something. Or maybe she realized this wasn't the kind of neighborhood where people tolerated power trips anymore. One evening, I was out front watering the lawn when she walked over. Not with a clipboard, but with a 6-pack of lemonade seltzer. Hey, she said, I just wanted to say, I know my sister didn't leave the best impression around here. I'm not her. I'm not trying to run the place. I just want peace and quiet like everyone else. Honestly, I respected that. We talked for a while. She admitted she used to think her sister was just being dramatic about the neighbors until she actually read through the HOA records and saw the complaint trail. She said, It's wild how many pages she wrote about your garage alone. We both laughed. It was weirdly full circle. The same spot where Karen 1.0 used to scream about my fence was now the setting for a peaceful neighborly conversation. And it hit me. That's what this whole saga was really about. Boundaries. Not just fences or HOA rules, but personal ones. Knowing when to stand your ground, when to call out toxic behavior, and when to welcome someone in with a clean slate. The neighborhood hasn't just changed, it's grown. People look out for each other now. We communicate. We laugh. We've learned how to spot a Karen from a mile away, and more importantly, how to make sure they don't run the show. As for me, my garage still hums with projects, my grill still fires up every weekend, and I've never gotten another fake HOA violation. I still keep my security cameras on just in case, but these days, they mostly just catch squirrels doing parkour off the fence. Life is good. And if another clipboard warrior ever moves in, thinking they can control private property that isn't theirs, well, they're in for a surprise. Because this time, the whole block's ready.